Welcome to today's Seidokan Saturday. So just as an introduction, I typically move from wrist grabs and attacks, then move up to elbows, and then into shoulder locks. So we're going to look at a couple of elbow techniques today, and they basically involve the cup and saucer position, which you'll see a lot in kata. This is one of our main sources of Tuidi, or of grabbing somebody in a response situation. I'm going to do a whole video on this later, but just as an intro, levels of response are determined by situation. Now, I get a lot of this, oh, in MMA they do this. Well, MMA trains to submit or knock out. That's their levels. But if it's Uncle Bob drunk at the wedding, I don't want to knock him out. He's not going to submit. I don't want to kill him. So we have to deal with levels of response. If you're a Navy SEAL doing sentry removal or recon sentry removal, and you have to go in and take the guy by surprise and kill him, that's a different level of response. If you're a policeman and you're restricted by your police officer standards of training, the POST, or whatever your state's version of that is, there are certain things that you are prohibited from doing. And so our ability versus our responsibility versus our authorization, all of those things get weighed into the situation. With Tuidi, we can generally gradate those things pretty well. So, working with the arms, okay? First attack is he's going to come grab me by the shoulder like he's about to punch. Again, I want to get away from that punch, so I angle myself back. I'm going to straight arm raise up under his elbow and turn it as I come to this position, or just press down at the shoulder. I like to come here where I have my elbow against his elbow, where I can press down. This again takes us into the wrist locks, which we had last week, and the wrist lock rising throws, which we followed through with last week. But now, rather than start at the wrist, we're starting, he's put his hand on me, and I'm immediately going to respond here by stepping back and coming over at the elbow. From here, again, gradations of response. I can drop and break the elbow. I can come all the way, sit through, and land on his elbow. I could kick over and take his elbow and pop it using my stance, which we have it later in some of our Kempo techniques. So there are a variety of things, but they all begin with the response of coming immediately around. So the minute this hand gets here and I want to pin this here, so I'm actually pushing up a little on his wrist, coming up and around and over. So I turn his elbow. So now the point of his elbow is up as I can press down. And again, I can push. I like to come into the cup and saucer, my elbow to his elbow. We can go the straight end as well. So from here, instead of a full reverse wrist lock or Nikyo position, we can come down and in, and from here, do a variety of other things. Okay? Number one, next elbow. He's going to reach across, wrist grab. On this one, I'm going to come under, hitting his elbow with my arm as I come under. From here, I'm going to turn this down and pull down and up. And again, I'm trying to come to this position, but his dadgum elbow got in the way as I break it from here. Now I have his wrist bent. Again, we can continue with Tuidi manipulations, or simply break his elbow, strike, take down, Naihanchi takedown, Pinyan Godan takedown, right? Break, come over the top. Pinyan Shodan, Pinyan Yondan, side kick back fist, coming from this cup and saucer position. Break, lift, and I have control, okay? Last one, in a similar situation, it's similar to the first one at the elbow, but instead of coming up and under here and pushing his hand this way, I am going to come around and over. So now I have his wrist again, which began this technique, but instead I'm going to stretch it, come elbow to elbow here, or armpit to elbow here, and lock up. And again, I can kick through and drop, land on his elbow. I'm going to do that very slowly, please. Ready? Sit through, land on his elbow, and I'd hold on. If I'd have held on up here, I would have gone right through his elbow and it's broken. Now I can come back and do the same thing at his shoulder instead. Now it's safer on his elbow. I can come all the way down and apply the lock here. I can still strike, still break, break, strike. Okay. Now these are quick responses, and what level I decide to do is going to depend on if he's grabbed me and he's getting ready to punch or swing a knife. Is he drunk Uncle Joe? Is he a mugger on trying to do some real damage? Okay, and all of these can be reversed to the opposite hand. The difference being that here, instead of coming straight up and over, now I'm going to shoot through to here, and I actually come through his hand, and the same thing happens. Instead of a cross wrist grab, where I came under this way, now it's the same side wrist grab, I can still come under this way. Cross wrist grab, I came over this way. Cross wrist grab, I come over this way. Switch sides. So we have the same three techniques with a little bit different of an entry. So again, he grabs here. On the first one, he was at my shoulder, and I came up and over. Now he's grabbed my wrist. I shoot through and come over. Okay, don't let me straighten my arm. I'm pushing in against his thumb, and I have his even strong wrist. Don't let me bend your wrist. I'm pushing in against his thumb. I still have this technique quite easily. He grabs the punch. We did the cross hand side here and up and under this way. Now we do the same hand side. I just turn it, and now I have the same up and under, and again, we can continue. And then the last one, we had the cross and came around with the elbow. Now we have the same side, exact same technique. The only difference is how I actually get into this position. Okay, so instead of circling around this way, I circle around this way. Both times I'm going to the outside of his wrist. So I come to the outside of his wrist, I come to the outside of his wrist. Same situation, okay? And again, the point of this is, and in most of Toma Sensei's Tuidi, what you will see is I don't just hold the guy here. For Toma, we spiral, he ends up on the floor. So when I do this, I spiral in him and he's down to the floor. Now I have a strong position again where I can break the elbow, whatever else. But I want to get him on the floor, whereupon I can decide how lethal, how much harm I want to inflict. The old Jack Reacher approach is once he gets a guy down to the floor, boom, make sure it's broken, so he's not going to use that again, all right? It depends. So whether you're cop, military, civilian against bad intention, civilian against well-meaning drunk guy, witnesses with cameras, you have to make sure that your level of response is proportionate to the type of attack that you're dealing with. Why don't they do this in MMA? I just watched a video with a Navy SEAL guy talking. Some MMA guy said, yeah, I don't care about Navy SEAL. Get him in here in the ring with me. And the Navy SEAL then responds, we don't do ring, but I guarantee you, because I've trained some of these guys, Navy SEALs are tough. Conditioned as all crap, at least as aerobically conditioned as any MMA guy, because they're rucking 50 to 100 pounds, running, marching nonstop, go, no sleep for 25 hours. They're tough conditioned guys, and the willpower is there. And the SEAL was talking about, well, I'd gouge his eyes, bite his arm off, bite his ear off, He goes to put the arm bar on me, right? I'm going to gnaw him. I'm going to come and grab an ear and rip it off. And that's kind of the stuff the SEAL was talking about, which I wholeheartedly agree with. Now, does that mean the MMA guy can't do that? No, surely he can. I mean, Mike Tyson was a boxer, but he bit an ear off. But by the same token, we tend to fight how we train. And there's even a movement in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that some of those guys who always want to pull the guard, that kind of thing, very ineffective for street-level defense, and it can build bad habits. So if I take that MMA training or whatever and add the old karate where we are grabbing, and Ian Abernathy just pointed out this move in Unsu where we see the pointer finger. This is not my attack. Let me camera a little bit. This is not to poke the eye. These are the working digits in the jaw and in the eye, and my finger is just pointing so I don't get in the way. It puts my hand in the right position to get his head. And then in the kata, we do this. Well, that gets into some pretty deadly stuff. That's karate. You're not allowed to do that in MMA. Does that mean they can't or couldn't? Sure they can, if they train with that stuff. If I train only to knock out, only to submit or break a joint, then Uncle Bob gets drunk at the wedding, I'm going overboard. If I train only to kill, rip, break necks, stomp heads in the floor, then I'm training only for Navy SEAL sentry removal. If I train just nice, safe, closed fist, punch and kick, I'm training for boxing or non-contact tournament. How you train is going to determine your response. In karate, we want to be able to gradate that, okay? And therefore, Tuidi sort of allows us this. From here, if this was a real fight and he was going to swing at me and I was worried about life, I'm going to take my fingers into his face, pull his back, take his jaw, take him down, rip the groin out. I will do mean things, depending on who this is. If he's my drunk Uncle Bob, I'm just going to nicely take him down into my arm bars or arm lifts, or whichever technique I decide at that point. So we have levels, and Tuidi is a beautiful position to allow us to do that. Even if it starts with punching and blocking, right? And I can get in and tie him up, okay? I got to this position, I threw my punch through, now I'm here. Look, Tuidi. Now I can change the level of force as the encounter continues. Okay, thank you, sir. New Tuidi gradation concept. I was going to make two separate whole videos, but I think I covered my point there. So, karate is for what it's for. Navy SEAL training is for what it's for. MMA is for what it's for. There can be crossover benefits, but they have to be trained. You can only do what you've trained to do. You're not going to synthetically, symbiotically, osmotically know something in the moment that you haven't practiced. Until next week then, as always, let's keep practicing.